Hey everybody, I've got a 2020 GMC 2500 HD. I'm experiencing a noise in the steering column, steering wheel. This truck is got 5,000 miles on it. Just turned 5,000 miles. I've already had it to the dealership once for this issue at 2,500 miles. Basically the steering wheel, let me just show you. It makes a noise whenever there's no load on the steering box. So basically at the 12 o'clock position, when there's no load on the steering or the wheels, the front axle, you can feel a slight bump in the steering wheel, like a slop, if you will. Whenever it's transitioning, the slop, you can feel the slop in it right here. And there's also a sound. Let me shut the door. Okay. If you can feel it and hear it as well. Just like, it's almost like a pop, 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 pop in the steering wheel. And you also feel it when you're going over a rough terrain in the road as well, like a bumpy road or something, or a washboard interstate, possibly if you're going slow enough. You don't really feel it at highway speeds though, only if you're going slow through a parking lot or down on a gravel road or something. So when I took this truck to the dealership the first time, they replaced the intermediate shaft, the upper intermediate shaft, they said was the issue. And that fixed the issue for about 2,500 miles. And I noticed it coming back. So I decided to investigate a little bit myself before I take it back, because obviously with their throwing parts at it, it's not really fixing it. It's band-aiding an issue. So there's obviously something going on with the parts for these trucks. I'm sure it's on the 2020 2500 Silverado as well as the GMC Sierras. And I'm pretty sure that, this is the brand new, being 2020 being the new year model, or the new model generation truck. They've probably got the same issue with the 2021s as well. They haven't changed parts or fixed the issue yet. I imagine they will eventually. Enough people complain about this. But so what I did, let me just show you guys real quick. Fairly simple to get through. I've got a little step stool I'm standing on to make it easier to gain access. But there's 3 bolts, 10 millimeters, holding on this cooling reservoir right here. There's 3 10 millimeters, 2 over here and 1 over here. Pop them off. That gets this unit out of the way so you can gain access, pretty good access to the intermediate shaft, which is down below. It runs to your steering box right here. This bar runs into the firewall to the steering wheel. And inside there's a little U-joint. Looks like a drive shaft U-joint. I don't think that's the issue. I think what it is, because I've already had this apart, there's this rubber boot right here that covers on the fire, goes on the firewall that the intermediate shaft goes through and slides on, because this intermediate shaft has got, it's supposed to slide with the front suspension. If it travels up and down, it needs to slide a little bit in and out to provide slack, so that way it doesn't bind up. So I took off this boot, which was held on with 3 10 millimeter nuts as well, right here. And just and also you'll have to take, there's a nut right there, a 15 millimeter nut that's holding your intermediate shaft. It ties it into where it goes into the gearbox down there on the steering gearbox. Take that off and you just pull the intermediate shaft apart. It slides apart, and then you can pull out your boot here. I'm thinking that the problem is this boot. So I'm thinking that this thing has some grease in it that comes from the factory that gets wore down and causing a slack, just ever so slight gap in here for that shaft to spin on. Because I mean, you could shake it and hear it slopping around in there. So I'm gonna maybe put just a tad bit of grease in here on this these plastic bearings, and put it back together and see if that makes any difference or not. If not, then we'll try something else. We'll pull the whole intermediate shaft out and try something different. But we're gonna go from there and see what happens anyways. So this plastic collar does pop out of the this rubber boot here, at least on this one side that goes against the firewall. I just pulled it out enough. I probably didn't really have to. I just wanted to see if it did come out, maybe for a future fix. If this does fix it temporarily, I may opt to find me a roller bearing or something that fits in there securely, instead of having to do this every so many miles. But so yeah, I just took it out and just put a little bit of wheel bearing grease inside there to kind of stiffen things up. So now you can't hear it slopping around in there. So we're gonna try that and see what happens. Stick it back in there, put it back in the grooves like it's supposed to be. Slap a little grease on this one, the one that doesn't have anything on it yet. I'm not gonna take it out of the rubber boot. I'm just gonna put a little grease on it in there. Try to get rid of some of that slack. Then we'll stick it back on the truck and see what we get. All right, I got both sides. I got the other collar back in there. You don't have to take it out on yours. I just took it out on mine just to check, but yeah, because it was kind of a booger to get it back in there. But we got both collars greased up pretty good. Got grease all in between the two different roller parts of the collar, plastic bearing, whatever you want to call it. And we're not getting any noise. Took the slack out of it, so we're gonna slap this thing back together and see what we got, and then go from there with it. Just wanted to show you guys about how much grease I put in there. Just a thin layer, enough to pack it in the center. Like you don't want too much oozing out everywhere. You don't want it getting all inside there, because this truck's still under warranty as well. You know, shouldn't be having to do this on a brand new truck, but sometimes you got to take matters into your own hands. Come on, GM, do better than that. So we put the boot back on and hooked the intermediate shaft back up, and that didn't fix it. Still was making a noise. So now I've got the intermediate shaft taken out of the truck. It's pretty simple. It's just underneath the dash, 11mm bolt that holds it onto the splines, onto the steering column. Slide that off, and it slides right out of the firewall. So I want to show you something that the slack, the play inside of this intermediate shaft. If I can, try to hold this phone here. So this intermediate shaft slides in and out of this collar here. Like I said before, to compensate for the adjustment of the suspension. When the suspension goes up and down, it's going to move this in and out, so that way the steering doesn't get bound up. So when you have this out, hold on to this piece and hold on to this piece. You can twist it and feel and hear. You can feel it and hear a slight play in it. Let me see if I can get it to pick up here. Give me a second. I want you guys to hear this. So that's me just twisting it. So if you have this all the way extended out, there's a little bit of white lithium grease they use in here. If you slide this all the way out, as far as because it won't come apart. I don't want to break it. It might separate, but there's a nylon bushing or something in there. And there's splines in here. There's little splines that holds that little nylon bushing, and I guess that bushing is what controls slop. So if that is the case, then what I'm gonna do with this is I'm gonna take my little needle for my grease gun, and I'm gonna put this down about about an inch or so, and I'm gonna fill this up with grease. Right on this side, all each sides of it. Try to get this thing right here as full of grease as I can. I mean, even though I know it's going to extend a little bit, and then just wipe off the excess, but I want this to be as full of grease as possible. All these splines need to be as full of grease. That's the only thing I can think of right now. That's kind of an old fix that they used to do on the a few generations ago. I want to say like 2005, 2010 trucks. They had the same issue, and they would just grease it. That's the temporary fix. It's not a permanent fix for this issue. So they're kind of taking a step backwards. You know, here we are 2020 and still dealing with the same thing. So I don't know. I'm hoping maybe GM will figure something out, or aftermarket, they'll come out with something in the aftermarket to fix this intermediate shaft for these 2020s and up. But for the time being, I'm just going to take these, take my little needle for my grease gun, just put grease down in here, put it back together and see what we got. I'm pretty sure that's going to take care of the loose, the slack in this. But I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then I'll put the video back on in just a second. So I was able to get let's get this thing full of grease here. It's pretty packed. I just extended it out all the way and just started all the way up. I didn't realize you didn't have to use the needle, but you can just slide this out and then grease it up that way, grease up the shaft. But I wanted it to get as full as possible in here. All these splines, individual splines, I wanted them to be as full of grease as possible. I'm sure when I get this thing back in the truck and get it hooked up, I'll wipe off the excess that's showing in inside the truck under the dash. I don't want it dripping grease everywhere. I'll wipe that clean. But I just used this little grease needle. You can pick these up at O'Reilly's or somewhere for $3 or $4. They're pretty handy to get in tight spots. But I'm gonna go ahead and stick this back on the truck and see what we got. Okay, we got it all back together, and it seems to have done a lot for it. Very, very slightly. Not really feeling anything. Definitely not hearing it as loud. So I do believe that adding the grease onto the splines and that inside that intermediate shaft helped fill the gap and help fill up the difference in the size of that opening. So that way it's not it's working like it's supposed to now. So I mean, I know that's not really a 100% fix, but hell, that's what GM used to do 10, 12, 15 years ago. That was what their protocol was, to fix this issue on the older generations. So I'm sure when they get to where they get tired of replacing the intermediate shafts on these trucks, that'll be their next fix, is to just add grease to the splines or down it, using a needle. You can actually get to it through the firewall. Probably in the future, if I need to add a little more grease to it. Whoops. Let me turn my light on if I can. I can't get to it. But I'm gonna try to show y'all what I'm talking about. You can get to it underneath the truck right here. It's not gonna work, is it? No. Anyways, you can get to those splines underneath the truck, underneath the dash there. You can use that needle and get in there and squeeze a little grease in there until it comes out. You can actually get to both sides of that shaft from under there, and just wipe away the excess with a couple of blue paper towels or something, and that ought to get you in pretty good shape for a while, at least to quiet it down for a while, to make it to where it's tolerable, to where you can drive the truck. But I may do that. I'm sure that after a week or so driving, it'll get a little bit louder. That grease will work into place a little more, and I'll come back and just go into the dash here and just add a little bit of grease to it. I'm not going to take the whole intermediate shaft out again. But anyways, so that looks like that's going to be our temporary fix for this issue on these trucks. until GM comes up with something different. But anyways, I'm not telling you, you know, that's just something that I do because there's no point in me taking the truck to the dealership for them to replace the intermediate shaft every 2 months, every month. That's why I took matters into my own hands on this issue, and I know there's a lot of the guys that are having the same problems with these trucks as well. But anyway, I just wanted to kind of make a video to follow up on that and show what I've, you know, my fix for it for now until they come up with something different. But all right, guys, well, let me know in the comments if you guys have any, your trucks having the same issue. I'm not sure if it's on the half tons or not. I know it's, I mean, 3/4 tons are having this issue. I don't know if the half tons, if you got a half ton truck and it's doing the same thing, leave a comment and we'll see if that, you know, and let me know if that fixes your issue, or if you find something else that works better than this doing the grease hack, you know, the grease fix. Just let us know down in the comments, and we'll go from there. All right, guys, take care. Bye.